Everyone, Mr. Tweet here. So in today's video, I'm going to go over the foreign exchange graph with you guys. Foreign exchange is when we have an exchange of currency from one country to another. And so in some ways, it's pretty similar to like unit 2 supply and demand. But the big difference is our y-axis is a little bit different and we have different shifters we have to look at. The other big difference is that these foreign exchange graphs usually come in pairs, or they could come in pairs. Unlike an AP test, oftentimes you'll only be asked about one. But if you look at it in terms of two graphs, I think that you'll find that it's much easier to figure out kind of which currency is appreciating and depreciating. So first thing is that when we look at a currency, it always has to be compared to another currency. There's no absolute measure of value for a currency. It's always got to be relative to some other currency. So like for the US dollar, whether it's appreciating or depreciating, it's going to depend what currency we're comparing it to. You might be appreciating compared to some and depreciating relative to others. Because it's just a relative game, and we always look one at, one versus one. So right here, I've got the graph of the US dollar and the British pound, or the pound sterling. So first thing is, notice that our x-axis quantity is the same. Supply of dollars, demand for dollars, really the same. Over here for pounds, supply of pounds, demand for pounds. There we go. My y-axis is always going to be the other currency that we're looking at divided by it's the other currency divided by the one we're looking at. So for the US dollar graph, it's going to be British pounds over US dollars. What this means is this tells you how many pounds you can get for $1. So if we move up, we're getting more pounds. If we're moving down, we're getting fewer pounds for our dollar. Moving up is appreciating in value. Moving down is depreciating in value. Over here for England, how many dollars do you get for your British pound, right? And then there's an equilibrium that's created by the supply and demand for those currencies. So I'm just going to label that my E for equilibrium. So you can label it P for price. Maybe I'll put P sub E, because really and truly, this is the price of that currency in terms of another. So this would be like the price of US dollars in terms of British pounds. This is the price of a British pound in terms of US dollars. All right. You'll also notice that between my two graphs, I wrote a word here, FOREX. I find that when you're working with this model, it is really helpful to, like, in your brain, imagine the foreign exchange market as like an actual physical place where people trade money. Think of FOREX as like an island between every country, or think of FOREX as like a stop on your way from one to the other. So that if there's some sort of shift that happens, it's best to think of it in terms of FOREX, what's happening on that island where they have money from every country and they're willing to trade. Because that's really what the foreign exchange is it's really people with money from every different country willing to trade it, for your currency or whatever. So our FOREX is in between these two. Now, you're going to have some sort of scenario. Maybe it is, incomes go up in a country, then people are going to want to import more. So they're going to have you're going to need more of the other country's currency to buy their stuff. Maybe our shifter is going to be like a change in interest, like real interest rates. So capital flow happens. Or maybe our shifter could be something like, some sort of taste and preferences that cause people to want more of stuff in another country, right? So let's look at an example. Let's say we've got US, England here. Let's say that the Olympics are happening in the United States. And so lots of people from England want to come to the United States to root on, their athletes in the Olympics, and to, people see the United States on TV and they want to come here on vacations. And so a lot more tourists want to come from England to the United States. All right. So let's look and see what's going to happen here. Well, if a lot more tourists are coming to the United States, they're going to have to first stop at FOREX. So these, British people are going to have to take their pounds with them. So they're going to get their money and think of them as tourists with their money in their hands and them on their way flying to the United States. But they got to stop at a little island and they got to trade their British pounds for US dollars, right? So what's going to happen on our graph? Well, the first thing is that these British people who are, on their way and they're stopping to get their, to trade their currency. Well, from the foreign exchange point of view, we can see the supply of British pounds is increasing because people are bringing their British pounds to FOREX. The supply of British pounds is going up. Now, why is the supply of British pounds going up? Because all of these people are going to Forex because they want US dollars. So there's extra demand for US dollars in the foreign exchange market. So we got demand for US dollars increasing, supply of British pounds increasing. We find our new exchange rate. What we see is the US dollar is going up in value. We call that appreciating. The US dollar appreciates. And so then the British pound depreciates. And there you go. It's always got to be, because these are values are relative to each other, if one is going up compared to the other one has to be going down compared. So it's always going to be one appreciates, one depreciates. Let's look at one more example. So here I've got the graphs for the Canadian dollar and Japanese yen. All right, so Canada over here, Japan over here. Notice that for Canada, it's yen over Canadian dollars. For Canada, it's Canadian dollars over yen. All right, so we've got our equilibriums here. Let me put equilibrium prices there. So we've got our equilibrium prices on our graph. So in this scenario, let's assume that real interest rates start falling in Japan. All right. So real interest rates are falling in Japan. So what's going to happen? Well, people who have their money in Japanese banks are going to want to remove it from Japanese banks and maybe put it in Canadian banks, right? So if interest rates in Japan are falling relative to interest rates in Canada, then we're going to see people taking that money out of Japanese banks and wanting to put it into Canadian banks. So we're going to see people taking their money out of banks in Japan. They're going to be on their way to Canada. They're going to have to stop at FOREX, where they're going to have to change that currency. So they're going to be taking their Japanese yen into FOREX. So from the FOREX point of view, the supply of yen is going to increase. So we're going to see the supply increases. And why is it increasing? Because they want Canadian dollars. So the demand for Canadian dollars goes up. And then we find our new equilibriums. Canadian dollars appreciate and yen are depreciating. And that's your answer. So that's how you do the foreign exchange graph. Again, it's always got to be one currency compared to the other. I think if you put them side by side and think of Forex as being in between them, that kind of helps us conceptualize what's happening and it makes sense of what's going on here. So, all right, take care. See you in the next video.